making sure. Sorry. Okay. So, welcome to Arise. Today is November 19th. My name is William, and I'm going to go over some announcements for this week. So, the first one to note is you can find all our announcements at that tiny URL link you see on the screen behind me. If you miss any announcements or you want to read them again, and they are updated every Friday usually. So, if you want to read them before you come to church, that is also possible. Okay. We are next one. We are almost done with our campaign to be on time to service at 10:15 a.m. So there is one more week in November, next Sunday on the 26th. So if you have been here 5 times on time between the months of October and November, then you'll earn a reward. So if this is not your 4th time, you're not making it. I'm sorry. I think I'm not making it either. So yeah, if you have gone 4 times, you got one more. You got to get here next week. Otherwise, sad face. Okay. Some of you may have already earned it. Yeah. So we have a EGM, which is Extraordinary General Meeting on the 10th in a few weeks after service in the sanctuary where the Cantil service is. We're going to be talking about the church structure and voting on the church structure that was announced in the EGM last Sunday. Okay. The annual election meeting will be postponed to February 2nd, 2024, pending the changes to the structure depending on the vote. Okay. Operation Christmas Child, today is the last day to turn in a shoebox. And if you can help deliver it to the Fremont Distribution Center in town, please let Uncle Francis know. Okay. Oh, next Sunday, this youth will be here. So our average age will drop significantly. Okay. They will be here next Sunday. The Zoom link will be the same. We'll be here in the NPR. There will be no youth program on Sunday. If any, they will all be here with us. Okay. The last announcement. Arise is supporting a new missionary couple, Joyce Wong and Henry Samaotu, the missionaries in the Republic of Congo in Africa, and they operate an eye clinic called New Sight Ministry. Okay, they're going to be here on that date, Friday, December 8th at 7:30 p.m. Anyone is welcome to join. The sharing will be at the NPR. So you don't need to register. You don't need to register. However, there is a dinner before at I think 6:45 here. And if you want to go to the dinner, we're still taking reservations, right? For the dinner before? Yeah. You do need to sign up if you're coming to dinner before, so we make sure we have enough food. If you have any youth, they have the option. They can either go to the missionary sharing, or we also have our usual scheduled youth program that day. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Sorry, forgot this one more. Yes, we have a special Christmas visit to our street ministry on the 23rd, Saturday in December. We will be at 11:15. We'll be meeting here at church. We're gonna be packing Christmas lunch boxes with ham, mashed potatoes, and vegetables. You can, again, 11:15. If you want to be there, contact Uncle Thomas or Uncle Francis for more details. Okay. After that, what is your favorite Thanksgiving food? Okay. Yeah. Okay, yeah, so let's introduce our guest speaker, who's Pastor Mark Fisher. He is a founder of a nonprofit called Seek and Save, and he's been ordained as a pastor through a prison ministry. His passion has been ministering to vulnerable and victimized youth through tangible expressions of God's love. Please welcome back Pastor Mark Fisher.
All right, thank you all. Today we get to talk about dreams and joy and singing. So it should be pretty up. Gospel is good news, as somebody told us in seminary. Oh yeah. All right. So maybe think about a dream that you have or had. You know, one of those big ones. I think down in Silicon Valley they call it the BHAG, the big, hairy, audacious goal. So ponder on your dreams, and if you have one or not, you know, sometimes you think about dreams that you pursue and prayerfully, and you think it's serving the Lord, and you know, sometimes you don't. You just go with the flow, like Jesus's apostles, come and follow me. Okay. Now, if they probably wasn't a dream that they had formulated that somehow God was going to send the Messiah to include them in his group, but he did. Other dreams, we actually are going to go all the way to a dream that Jesus has. The dream of Jesus, the treasure of Jesus, the will of Jesus. And then when we match our dream with Jesus's dream, it's like our other choices in terms of what are we going to dream, what are we going to do, what are we going to hope for in the future. Unfortunately, it's all laid out for us in that Jesus came to free us, but also to grant us a more joyful life here on earth. You know, so we live life more abundantly, or a joy in our hearts. And still, the third and final stage, of course, is Jesus bringing us to heaven. So it's kind of this three-pronged approach, granting us freedom from death, freedom from sin, freedom from condemnation, freedom from pain, and this being led by our shepherd in laughter is a nice reminder. As we see all the evil and harm that's going on in the world, it's hard to be joyful. In fact, Peter tells us that the joy is in the Lord, of course, which is sometimes hard to feel joyful. The last part is Jesus bringing us to heaven, freeing us, leading us, and then homeward bound. So the passage for this sermon comes from Psalm 126. And a little background, this is after the Israelites were released from captivity in Babylon after 70 years. And they had these songs called Songs of Ascension. That was apparently what the restored or returned Jewish people, they would sing these psalms on their way up to essentially their church services. So if you picture in your mind these verses all being a song as we all go to church together. But if it applies to us, and it applied to the Jewish people when they were ascending to a church service or a tabernacle church service, it also applies to Jesus. if you start reading some of the Psalms and realize that, oh, this is the Word, and that reminds me that the Word was God and was with God, that in many times, while it's true for us and David, for example, it's also true for Jesus. And we know that because Jesus repeated many of the Psalms through his time on earth. So 126, the first 3 verses says, when the Lord restored the captives of Zion, we were like dreamers. Then our mouths were filled with laughter and our tongues with song. Then it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. So they are celebrating freedom. When they say the Lord restored the captives of Zion, that was the end of the 70-year sentence in captivity. And now they're praising God for the fact that he did return them from captivity, just like he returned his people from captivity in Egypt. Now they were freed from captivity in Babylon. And it was almost like a dream. We were like dreamers. It's almost like it's just too good to be true. It's too much to hope for. It's too much to dream. You know, after 40, 50, 60 years in captivity, it's like, okay, I guess there's gonna be no more Israel. Except, of course, for God. So Jesus is his captive treasures. When it talks about the captives, it's also a word for a treasure that you keep locked up in a safe deposit box or something like that. So he's referring to the captives, but it's also the treasure. It's the treasure of Jesus, and it was the captives of Zion. And they finally got to say, here on earth, we are still God's people. We can still worship him. We can still learn his ways. We can still demonstrate to the world who the true king is. Jesus went through this process, we know, and even in his prayers that are in Psalm and then Acts, Jesus said, Father, you will not abandon my soul to Sheol, nor will you let your Holy One see decay. So matching up with this little formula of freedom and laughter and home, Jesus went through the same thing. Jesus was captive in a grave, as we all know. And Jesus is saying, listen, I know that we have a grand plan, Father God. And so I know I'm just not going to end up stuck in that tomb indefinitely. But then when Jesus prays or proclaims in Psalm 16 and then in Psalm 22, he talks about joy. So just like us, you know, being freed, being joyful, going to heaven, same with Jesus while he was on earth. He prayed for the Father to free him from death. And then he talks about joyfulness. He says that he will proclaim the name of his Father to us. He will praise the Father in the assembly. So his joy, his thought is similar in that Jesus is looking forward for all of us to be in this tremendous assembly of angels and saints, praising the Father, praising everything there is to praise about God's plan and God's will. I will proclaim your name to my brothers. I will praise you in the assembly, Jesus says. So get him out of the tomb, resurrect him. And what he's looking forward to is proclaiming the greatness of the Father with all of us in the assembly of all those who are saved. But then he continues. So not only was he free from the grave, and not only was he anticipating this joyful gathering of this assembly of saints, he also has a dream. The righteous will gather around me because of your goodness to me. So that's also in Psalm. And Jesus is saying the righteous, all of us, made righteous by his blood, mercy and grace, all of us will swarm Jesus. And at first it's like, ooh, another benefit of being a Christian is going to be to gather around Jesus. But Jesus is talking about his perspective. He's thanking the Father. The righteous, millions, whatever, as many stars in the sky, all gathered around Jesus, and he's thanking the Father. He's saying that is the ultimate dream. That is the ultimate good that the Father is going to do for the Son, is to have all of us gathered around him out of the goodness of the Father. It's like Christmas gift is us for Jesus. So he tracks through the same things. You got to free me, then have some joy in a not always joyful place, and then all gathered together in heaven. Sometimes dreams, as we know, don't turn out like we thought they would. Even when Jesus told his disciples, we're going to Jerusalem, they're going to arrest me, betray me, crucify me, and bury me. And Peter's like, no, you can't do that. You've got to set up this new kingdom, and I'm going to be on one of your sides, right or left. Doesn't matter. Either one be fine with me. Don't know about my brother, but in any case, they had a dream. The disciples had a dream, but it was different than Jesus's dream. And sometimes we can get our dreams misplaced, or sometimes talk ourselves into it that, that was God speaking to me. I heard from God to, fill in the blank. But if you draw out your dream in too much detail, we might miss the dreams that he has for us. For example, I talked to Dorothy today, and earlier, when I was in spiritual care in juvenile hall in Oakland, I met this, as I guess they'd call delinquent youth. I met her, and then I met her family after she got out of juvie, and discovered that she had two younger siblings that were living in a shed in Oakland with their mom for 3 years. And that doesn't even include the time that they had spent in a shelter or in a safe house. They had half a garage for a little while. And I mean, it just tormented me every day thinking about those girls in that shed trying to act like normal kids. Hope friends find out that they're homeless because of the stigma. And I had a dream that I would help her mom get into an apartment. And that was my dream. And we even went and looked at some apartments, took the whole process, did the house hunting and all that, or apartment hunting, but it didn't come to pass. And I was pretty upset about that, frankly. But what has actually come to pass is that through a poor folk program, able to buy a brand new condo in Scotts Valley. And the point of that is they're my heirs. They'll never have to worry about being homeless again. They'll never have to worry about their kids being homeless again. They can devote themselves to their studies and into an actual career rather than just trying to scrape by to have a roof over their head. So the dream that comes to pass, I feel like, at least in my personality, the looser I hold it, the better it's going to become. Kind of like a plant. The more space you give it, the more beautiful it's going to become. And of course, that is faith and hope and not being deluded about what we can actually control or make happen or not. So I'll share another story about a dream. Several years ago, to Washington, D.C. with someone who wanted to see the Global Prayer Gathering, IGM, if you've ever heard of that. Anyway, and I told Camelia, who's always been on the West Coast, I said, Camelia, you have got to go to Waffle House, which is kind of an excuse for me to say, I've got to go to a Waffle House while I'm on the East Coast before I have to go back. So we go to the Waffle House, and it's always an experience. And we got to know the waitress that was serving us. Her name was Daisy, and she found out we lived in California, and she's asking Camelia about California. And then she just says, out of the blue, she says, yeah, California, that would be awesome. It's like that's where the wind is like blowing through your hair all day long. And I'm thinking, what movie did she see that gives her the impression? But that was a dream. I hope she's never disappointed in that dream, but that was her dream, to live in California where the wind is constantly blowing your hair back. So I'm sure you could borrow that dream if you so desire. She won't mind, little Daisy. So Jesus has this dream, but it involves freeing us from our sin and our mortality. And it also means there's this gap between being freed and being home, or this gap between being free and being in heaven. And then finally, we do get to heaven. So, for example, we're told that in Christ, all will be made alive, but each in his own turn. Christ is the first fruit of man resurrected. And then at his coming, when Jesus returns, then we will all join him as those who belong to him. And then this great picture of the trumpet sounding and the dead being raised imperishable, and we will be changed into our resurrection bodies. It says the perishable, us, will be clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal, us, will be clothed with immortality. So when he's talking about freedom, that pretty much covers it. When we're free from death, and when we're free from the grave, and we're free from perishing, and we're free from immortality. So as this verse or passage tracks, starts with being made free or redeemed. And then there's this part about our mouths are filled with laughter and our tongues with shouts of joy. So again, we visualize, or we see that this is about the Israelites being able to return to their homeland after captivity. It was like a dream come true. And now we're singing and we're laughing in joyful procession, which brings to mind, of course, how David was was rejoicing when he was bringing the ark back to Israel, or back to Jerusalem. Although it didn't work out for everyone, at least for David, he had the ark of God brought up, and there was much rejoicing. Then David, wearing a linen ephod, which you might want to give somebody for Christmas. Linen ephods apparently are the casual clothing of kings. He's wearing a linen ephod and he's dancing with all his might before the Lord. And then he and the house of Israel all brought up the ark with shouts and the sound of trumpets. It's this, once again, joyful procession. Everybody's cheering, everybody's singing, everybody's laughing, and everybody's dancing with all their strength before the Lord. So we kind of park on the joy that happens between the salvation moment and the resurrection body immortality moment. That's easy to kind of gloss over, except to point out that, well, this is how God's people lived when they were freed from Zion, when they had the freedom to worship together according to the Old Testament. So the joy and the celebration, I think, could use a lot of emphasis, in addition to the, oh, pray this prayer and one day you'll be in heaven. There's a lot between those two, and to be joyful about it. So, for example, a few years ago, actually the same Camellia, the amazing Camellia, I called her, we somehow were involved with this little project where they gathered up some trafficking victims in Oakland, and we got to take them to a Walnut Creek Symphony. So the whole orchestra, symphony, whatever, but they're playing Christmas songs that everybody knows. So the point is to sing along with the symphony in this beautiful setting. And so we gathered up these girls and we went and you know, I'm poking around, I'm hoping to see some of these girls are happy or overjoyed or something, you know, some positive response. And there was this one girl, she never sang any of the songs. She was pretty detached. She didn't talk to anyone. She didn't really look at anyone. She just kind of sat there. And it was, you know, I was a little sad for that. But I pulled Camellia aside and I said, you know, T down there, she hasn't been singing at all. Well, the amazing Camellia goes and sits next to her and started encouraging her to sing with Camellia. So Camellia is encouraging T to sing, and the next thing I know, my fears have been dashed. Everyone's having a good time, including this girl that needed some assistance from the amazing Camellia. Part of this joy interim dream of the freedom, joyful procession, joyful pilgrimage, really, as we go through this world, pointing to Jesus and pointing out the same dream. Be freed, and you can have joy, and that joy will carry on to heaven. So about being freed, for we were called to freedom, it says in Galatians, but not to use our freedom as an opportunity for the flesh, rather serve one another in love. I used to always wonder about that verse, where they would say, okay, we are free to serve. I never knew what that kind of meant, but I'm starting to realize that That you can be free to serve means you can be without fear because you know where you're going. You can be free to serve as you get to learn your own ministry inclination or just a ministry experience. So being free is also being free of repercussions. It's also being free of concerns or worries. You know, if you look back through your times where you really had to struggle or fight for something, like getting a house or a particular job or a church project, you know, God makes it happen. And if you're holding it loosely, it's almost like you can just step back and see how it unfolds and even the twists and the turns. Free to serve without being worried about the repercussions, or if somebody's going to be upset, is also a nice way to exercise our freedom. I've had many people get upset in various ministries, cops, judges, that sort of thing. But it's not on me. I'm just, let's try to minister in joy because we've been freed and because of point number 3, the ultimate conclusion of this joyful journey where you're surrounded by darkness instead of light. The last step is being invited into heaven. So as we're walking with the Spirit, we're being joyful on our pilgrimage. We're also demonstrating tangibly the fruit of the Spirit, our love and our joy and our peace and patience and kindness and goodness, faithfulness and self-control. I think that's them. All of them fairly happy emotions or traits through the Spirit. In fact, when I stopped going to church for 20 years, probably. But stumbling across this verse brought me back and say, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. And it's like, man, if I could just get those 3, that'd be an awesome life. I don't even know what the next 5 are, but if I could just get a little joy and a little peace, hallelujah. And I've gotten more than that, more than a little peace and joy. All right, so Jesus's dream, our dream, match up in terms of being freed, having a joyful pilgrimage, and then getting to heaven. So in this passage, after it talks about being joyful and being freed, then it says, it was said among the nations, the Lord has done great things for them. The Lord has done great things for us, and we are filled with joy. And what a testimony it would be, right? If all the world who didn't believe in God or reject the Bible or don't want to have anything to do with that spiritual stuff, if they all stepped back and looked at us or looked at the church and said, wow, the Lord is doing great things for them. And then you turn around and say, yep, you can be blessed like that too. Not necessarily going to be material goods or success or victory according to the terms of this world, but for people to be able to step back like my heirs. One day, and even now, they're saying, wow, from a shed to a purchase of a condo in 5 years, God has done great things. Great things. So in Zechariah, for example, it kind of talks a little bit more about non-Christians or non-God-fearers or non-believers, whatever we want to call them. I've got a friend who calls them pre-believers because he refuses to believe they're not going to make it. So pre-believers, watching this joy, watching God fulfill his will. So he's talking about, for example, Zechariah, the fasts or festivals of the 4th, the 5th, the 7th, and the 10th months will become times of joy and gladness, cheerful feasts for the house of Judah. So he's already anticipating and describing to us all these heavenly festivals and feasts we're going to have all the time, pretty much every other month, or 4th, 5th, 7th, 10th months. It's always going to be yet another festival, another party, another celebration in heaven. But while this joy on earth is being reflected on great things being done to us by God, or for us by God, seeing all this joy, seeing all this gladness, seeing all this peace, patience, the others, the pre-believers, the unbelievers, Zechariah says, in those days, 10 men from the Gentile nations of every different tongue in the world will tightly grasp the robe of a Jew, saying, let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. Once again, back to the testimony that isn't about beating someone about the head and shoulders, about do you know where you're going to spend eternity? You remember those tracks with the flames? Yeah. All right. Don't have to do that approach. Instead, you can have the testimony of, oh, God has done great things for them. And the testimony of, oh, look how cheerful and joyful they are. And they're partying all the time. And I want in on some of that. Zechariah tells us, folks of the world will be seeing the testimony of what God has done for us, and then just wanting to hang out with us for some reason. 10 to 1, which are pretty good odds. But it's also a question for us. Would anyone just pop up and join our little group, whatever we're doing, and saying, hey, I want to be with you because we have heard that God is with you, like the Christmas thing or the Samaritan's Purse thing, there was a pretty prominent Christian nonprofit leader who said that when he went to university, he started hearing and learning about a lot of injustices and atrocities in the world and in history. And can we fix things? Can we improve things? And all these clubs and groups are trying to make a change. And he said it occurred to him that these social justice minded college students were really doing more for the poor and the afflicted and the oppressed than had been his church experience. He even related that he'd gone to church his entire life, but he never really heard a sermon or a presentation that shone light into darkness and responded to try to help or alleviate some of their suffering. And so he stopped going to church and he doubled down on his social justice activities with some of his other classmates, eventually coming back to church going. But it seemed to be a pretty valid statement that if you go somewhere and they seem to be a group of people who care more about those who need help than you're hearing in church, there's a discord between those two. But let's roll into, we're still talking about getting to heaven. The Lord has done great things for us. We are filled with joy. people are noticing that we're joyful, that we're free from guilt and shame, and that we are planning on a whole eternity of parties in heaven. So me and the amazing Camellia, we went to a church gathering. It's kind of like a ministry fair where there was bunches of tables from all different types of ministries, you know, water for those who don't get clean water, and a wide range of stuff. And so Camellia and I were down there trying to raise money for trafficking victims in the Bay Area. And I just walked by this table because I had a little time, and this one was for something. I think it was for water in Africa. And the lady behind Cody, she was just so bright, so cheery, so awesome. That I said, "Hey, Camellia, go and ask Cody if she wants to go to dinner with us tonight." You know, because those 2 or 3 day things all down in San Luis Obispo, you know, we're there for a little while. And so she did, and Cody said, yeah. And Cody, one of the things Cody used to do is bring her daughter to old folks' homes. I think I can say that now since I'm an old folk. And sing songs to them. I mean, just this, she said, "Do you realize that some people drop off their elderly parents and never visit?" It was just, she just couldn't believe the atrocity of that. So her and her kid are rolling in there, singing songs, cheering them up. That's kind of heart she had. So the event ended, and everybody's kind of packing up their stuff for the next day, and we're being patient, you know, waiting for Cody to join us. And it was taking a while. It's like eventually, well, maybe she's got other plans, or maybe, you know, maybe whatever is going on that she's not coming with us. So we asked her, Camellia asked her, "Hey, you know, don't want to put a whole lot of pressure on you, but are you coming or not?" And Cody, who's also a trafficking victim, it turned out, she didn't believe that we were serious. She couldn't believe that anybody would just respond to her sparkling personality and want to spend more time outside of the event, which was great. Then we took her to her host home for the event, and she just got out and started crying. And it's like, "Hey, well, what's up?" She says, "Listen, I've been through lots of these things. People want me to talk about this or that, about being trafficked or whatever else is going on. And they all say, 'Hey, look forward to catching up. I'll touch base. We need to get together.'" And she says, "But they never do. And you did." Something so simple as that, you know. Yeah. Falling. But yeah, anybody would like to hang out with her. I couldn't figure that part out. But in any case, that's what was going on with her. And that's what, you know, grab a hold of this robe and follow us to heaven. Because, as we're told by Peter, we are a chosen people. We are a royal priesthood. We are a holy nation. We are people for God's own possession. God's own possession, God's own treasure, God's own inheritance to himself are all different ways that will be described. But we're his, and he is ours. But for now, as we're this chosen people, this royal priesthood, this holy nation, we're to proclaim the virtues of God who called us out of darkness and into his marvelous light. Because once we were not a people, but now we are the people of God. Once you have Once you had not received mercy, but now you have. So Jesus's dream is our dream, to be freed, to have a joyful ministry, personally or corporately, and then go to heaven, where Jesus will be singing the praises of the Father in our midst as we surround him. Another picture, last picture. This is what the Lord says in Zechariah. I will return to Zion and dwell in Jerusalem. Then Jerusalem will be called the city of truth, and the mountain of the Lord of hosts will be called the holy mountain. This is what the Lord of hosts says. Old men and old women will again sit along the streets of Jerusalem, each with a staff in hand because of their great age. And the streets of the city will be filled with boys and girls playing there. You know, just a simple, beautiful picture. Sometimes I read that and I said, hold it. Who gets to be the playful kids and who gets to be the old people? I don't know. Maybe you switch in and out. Right now, just sitting around watching kids laughing and playing sounds pretty heavenly. So, in conclusion, Jesus's dream is our dream. And the great news is he's accomplishing it for us. Jesus' dream to free all of the captives, the treasures that we are to him. Walking with us through an abundant life so we can proclaim his name with joy and gladness. And then finally, literally bringing us home, actually coming to get us and bringing us back up. Those 3 steps of the great dream is ours, and Jesus is doing it. God doesn't sleep or rest till he brings this about. Thank you.